Welcome to Speaking Cinema, series movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you live from the middle of a prize fight in Hollywood, California. I'll tell you, like Wu told me, protect your neck.
Protect your neck.
At all times.
Yep.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all that shit, at Speaking Cinema. Let's do a Jibber Jabber every single Monday. Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud. That's where we're at. I am your host, the middleweight champion of North America, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me today, as always, hosting in the blue corner, washed up boxer working on his one-liners. This is Kevin!
Hi. How are you?
I was expecting a one-liner, but we're not doing it again. What?
I didn't have one on deck.
Yeah.
So.
You and, that's the problem with one-liners.
I'm no Henny Youngman.
Great reference.
R.I.P.
We're starting a new season this week, Kev. It's about time we pulled up once again to your favorite restaurant and mine, the Director's Buffet.
All you can eat.
This is where we choose a seminal movie director, take a handful of their works, analyze their career over the course of a season. Is that what we're going to get accomplished? I don't know, but we're definitely going to watch a bunch of movies.
We're going to try.
First one that we did, Steven Spielberg. Go back, revisit that.
I thought that was a very fruitful season, even though we had some divisive opinions.
And, in terms of if Steven Spielberg's filmography is a big old pie, we had some thin slices because, you can only do so many.
Do so much. And we're taking on another big pie this season.
Indeed. And this pie is going to be served up with some Catholic guilt by that big brown-eyed, gangster-loving New York-bred himself, Martin Scorsese.
Marty Scorsese. Yes. I'm looking forward to this one.
Kev,
And I'll tell you why.
You tell me why.
When we get into the meeting.
Ah, all right. Tease.
It's coming. It's coming.
If you're not familiar, Martin Scorsese was born in Queens, New York. New York, huh?
Believe it or not.
To parents that worked in the garment district. Scorsese went to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts to study film, where he met and worked with Harvey Keitel and editor Thelma Schoonmaker. During his time there, and they've all gone on to be lifelong collaborators, so imagine that. He befriended the film school brat pack of Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas, and Brian De Palma. Through them, he met frequent collaborator Robert De Niro, and together made the breakthrough film Mean Streets, though that was not his first movie. His first movie was Boxcar Bertha for Roger Corman.
And then he was a editor and I believe cameraman on the Woodstock movie documentary, the 4-hour 3 Days of Peace, Music, Love documentary, which Thelma Schoonmaker also worked on, and George Lucas also worked on. So
indeed,
so he's had a deep love of rock and roll and cinema and all kinds of stuff, as we're going to explore this season.
Indeed. Though mainly known to movie snobs as the maker of violent gangster movies, Scorsese has a long and varied filmography. You have just been talking about this.
Yes.
And he shows no signs of slowing down. He's 70 fucking years old, and he's still doing it.
Netflix just picked up his movie The Irishman with a $125 million budget.
And people are acting like it's the absolute fucking end of the world. Which I don't understand. They're like, oh, when Scorsese goes to Netflix, that's when you know the studio system's dead. And it's like, let's fucking calm down. Right?
Just, Paramount is a fucked up place at the moment, and he went where the grass is greener, where they were going to give him the money.
Hear that? It's money.
Green grass. Also, apparently the budget is so high because they're going to be using de-aging technology on Robert De Niro and Al Pacino.
Weird.
And Joe Pesci. So.
Oh, Pesci's coming back, huh?
Pesci's coming back.
Pesci's coming back. Usually, the list of greatest directors of all time include him. And if the list doesn't have it on him, that list ain't shit. Or is it? We're going to find out this season.
We're going to find out.
And I'll get to that.
But I'll tell you,
in a minute.
That list ain't shit.
Oh. So where to start with a filmmaker like Marty? How about we start with what is said to be an undisputed masterpiece, 1980's Raging Bull.
Yes.
Number 1 sports movie on the AFI Top 100 Sports Movies.
Absolutely.
Starring Robert De Niro, Kathy Moriarty. Moriarty.
Yeah.
No. And the major motion picture debut of Joe Pesci. Written by Paul Schrader, based on the autobiography of Jake LaMotta.
A real-life boxer.
Distribution, United Artists.
Yes.
Back when that was a company. Quick plot summary. The film follows the true story of Jake LaMotta, a championship boxer who is ferocious outside the ring as he was inside. Follows his rise and fall and the people he leaves in his destructive wake. As of this recording, Raging Bull available on physical and digital media for purchase and rental. Currently streaming on HBO Go/HBO Now. And has been on Netflix in the past. Keep an eye out for that. I don't like how there's two HBO things that are exactly the same.
Yeah, it's because HBO Now is you don't have to have a cable subscription to do it, but you pay a separate fee. HBO Go, if you have HBO in your cable package, is just a little bonus. So, but to the layman, it could be very confusing.
Indeed. So Kev, let's wind it back. You love Marty Scorsese.
Yes, I do.
Held in high regard by his peers. Sole Oscar wins for 2006 The Departed.
For Best Director.
Has stayed active for his career in the midst of 5 marriages and cocaine addiction. So
dude's had a wild life, I'll tell you that much.
Yep. I am not super familiar with his work. I've seen Taxi Driver and probably some of his gangster movies on the USA Network.
Sure.
Casino comes to mind. I believe I've seen Casino, and it's edited.
That nice little hour and 45-minute PG Casino.
Yeah. I think this is. It might have been on Spike when they were just bleeping stuff instead of cutting it, or changing the words.
Yeah.
You motherfucker.
Yep.
That's not how I said.
Mother father.
And also I did not like The Departed compared to the movie it's remade from, Internal Affairs, which is a superior film.
Infernal Affairs.
Sure.
Infernal, which I have not seen Infernal Affairs, so I need to check that out.
It's fucking great. Even though I got the title wrong, it's fucking great.
I'll check it out.
And I'm not gonna lie to you, Kev. I'm going into this season with a quote, "Impress me, motherfucker," end quote, attitude.
All right.
Because it's not Marty. Because you see interviews with Marty, and he seems like a nice guy.
He's
right?
great on anytime he's on Conan O'Brien. I suggest looking up those clips because they have a great rapport.
Right. And I remember he was like in an American Express commercial that was funny where he was upset about how the photos came out, and he calls his nephew and he was like, "You want to turn 7 again?"
There was a good back in like the early 2000s, I think, when they were doing there was a great set of promos about cell phones in movies, and they had a spot with Sidney Pollack, and one had Martin Scorsese, and it was this family like talking to their dad on the phone. He kind of comes in and interrupts it and is like, "No," he's like, "You're so detached from your father, you call him Frank." And he's like, "And you have a bottle?" He's like, "Why don't you get a bottle?" He's very good on camera as well. Like, he's very natural.
And I'm not accusing you of this, but there's lots of dude bros out there who worship at the fucking idol that is Martin Scorsese.
Absolutely.
And, he is beyond reproach to them. And any narrative like that, I don't want any part of.
But what I hope to accomplish with this season is to show, I think all those dude bros have only seen Goodfellas, only seen Casino, only seen The Departed, and we're really going to dive into a lot. This is a guy who does not make dude bro movies, but somehow dude bros love him. Yeah. And he's made a lot that I think they wouldn't love, and are just really want to dig into just how diverse and how interesting a filmmaker he is. So that's what I hope to accomplish over the next few weeks.
Indeed. 90 episodes in, our first Robert De Niro movie. Are you familiar with his work?
Indeed.
We all are on some level because he is just a highly working actor.
He's been, just constantly, steadily working since, like, Mean Streets, basically. Just is always there. A little sad that he kind of just seems like he doesn't give a shit anymore, though.
I mean, I think
it's an immense talent that he's just not using.
Was he in The Intern? That was him, right?
Yes.
See, because he was good in that, but he's just doing different shit now. You know what I mean? He's like a grandpa. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, people want to be Travis Bickle. Like, does it make sense at this age? He was also in that movie with, that boxing movie with, fucking Sylvester Stallone, where they're like boxing rivals.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I think that he was just having fun there, but who knows? You know what I mean?
I'm all for him having fun, but it's like, you can team up and find some better scripts and have fun with that, right? Because it's
potentially
that Meet the Parents franchise got stale real fast.
I feel like when we're pushing 60, those movies are going to get a lot funnier.
They just might.
All of a sudden.
They just might.
Boxing movies and sports movies. Do you like boxing?
I do, having never been to a live boxing match. Something I want to do sometime in my life.
I don't. I only like boxing in the pictures. I remember as a kid specifically, boxing was not on TV because boxing as a sport decided that they didn't want to build any more new fans. Yeah. So they decided to make it all behind the paywall, all of it HBO, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to even get in on boxing because it was so...
Yeah.
You had to pay $50 to watch any kind of quality match.
Right.
You know?
Between HBO and pay-per-view. I remember going over to my cousin's house and they had HBO and being like, oh my God, boxing is on. And I remember watching my first boxing fight and being like, this is fucking boring. And now granted, it was probably two jobbers, fighting on the undercard. Exactly. But I did not like it. And to me...
And it's a very... People think baseball can become an inside sport. Boxing is very much an inside sport. Very much evidenced when Pacquiao Mayweather was going down and ESPN was just hyping that. The old fucking boxing codgers that they dragged out to get on camera and I like the guy because he's a southpaw. It's those guys are just on a whole different plane of existence.
Yes they are. And I'm not a sports guy. I know you're a sports guy. I'm not a sports guy. I like MMA the most, but I hate sports for a lot of reasons, and one of them is the corruption and stuff. And it's just boxing is just boxing is very corrupt. Boxing is very hype-based. Boxing is very fake. Where it's you have...
As we're going to see in this movie.
You build a guy up by having him fight a bunch of losers, and then so now all of a sudden he's undefeated and he has a 20-0 record or whatever. And it's but that's not real.
Yep.
That's not... He didn't fight contenders. And, I don't know, man. It can be made into good cinema. Rocky's a good movie. There's been good boxing movies. I think boxing lends itself to movie making.
It lends itself to some great sports photography over the years.
Indeed. But the thing is that boxing isn't even hand fighting. It's knuckle fighting. Yep. And I like kicks, bro. I like kicks.
You like flying knees?
I do. I love me a good flying knee.
I mean, yeah. I agree. It is a very romanticized sport, but you could get a very Boa match that is very hyped, but it's like that Pacquiao Mayweather fight. It's these guys are well past their prime. Mayweather does not have an interesting fighting style. He's very defensive and is very point based. He's not going to go for a knockout. And yeah, it's just it's an interesting sport.
And it's the next thing that's coming up is the not formally announced, but McGregor versus Mayweather out of retirement, which Mayweather now is pushing hard. He's like, get it done, Dana White, get it done. And it's Conor McGregor, and it's they talked a bunch of shit to build up the fight, but it's this fight doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a guy with no boxing experience fighting a guy who's supposed to be undefeated in a way that is unprecedented. Yep. It's the commission should never allow this to happen. Nope. Right? That's me being the starting quarterback for fucking New England. It's what? You know what I mean? I've never thrown a football in my fucking life. How am I going to start for this team? Well, we just want to do it. Money. People want to see you get murdered. That doesn't seem right. Yeah. So,
and what's interesting is somebody in an interview, they asked Scorsese what sports he likes. And he said, if it has a ball, no good. That's kind of all the sports.
Except for boxing.
And then he said he specifically does not like boxing.
Well, that's interesting. I've never seen this movie before. The hype around it is incredible. The photography of the boxing fights are supposed to be really incredible. So I do look forward to that, knowing that reputation. Sure. And my dislike of boxing as a sport does not affect my dislike of boxing as a story.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think you can make an interesting movie about football, and I think football is an interesting sport. And you can make it sports is an interesting story. I just think that there's a lot of chicanery and weirdness to it.
Sports stories at their core are usually human stories. And
right.
I think that's why they resonate so much with our culture.
And I also think that when you tell a very specific story in a specific subculture that is intrinsically interesting, the concept of the NFL draft is an interesting idea.
Of course.
Any draft, really. You know what I mean?
A kid comes from nothing, or becomes this highly touted draft pick, but does he flame out? Does he rise to the challenge?
Can you afford him?
Can you afford him? Is it this? Is it that?
Right.
it's all of those things are just very human stories and we're just conditioned, I think, in a fine way to like really root for or have good guys, bad guys. It's, you know, it's just live theater basically. Nobody wants to admit it.
Yeah, it's live improv theater.
Yeah.
8 Scorsese movies lined up for this season. Some of them more obscure, some of them more of his oeuvre, if I'm saying that right, which I am sure I'm not. What are your expectations? What do you want to get from this, Kev?
I've seen Raging Bull a few times, and like any movie that I've seen a few times, will I find a new understanding of it? A new layer.
I want to see what the hype is about. I think that he is... I can't say he's overhyped because I don't know what to expect.
Sure.
I mean, I've seen some of his movies. They were good. You know what I mean? But, you know, is he the master that everyone says he is? I want to learn about that. I want to see some good movies with some interesting filmmaking techniques. Maybe learn something about myself. Maybe learn something about the world. I don't know.
I'm curious if this is going to be a good starting point then, to tell you the truth.
Let's dive in and find out.
Let's find out.
Here we go.
Here we go.
And we are back.
We're back.
Kev, we're back. How and when and where did you watch this movie?
I watched my Blu-ray copy. I had not watched it on my 4K TV yet, so I was excited to do that. Watched it on Tuesday, I believe, this week. Tuesday. Very good.
I watched it on, I believe, DVD from the library.
Very good.
Would you like to give your initial thoughts?
I want to tell a little story first.
Story time.
About the first time I saw Raging Bull.
Yes.
It was a Friday night. I was in high school. I believe I was a senior or junior, one of the two. I was in my first relationship, and we were kind of starting to get on the outs. So you that first feeling of like it's your first relationship, you want it to last forever, but it's starting to fall apart. The girl I was with wanted to go to this like dancing thing. It was a Friday night. I'm a teenager. I just want to hang out at home and play video games. So I was like, all right, whatever.
By a dancing thing, do you mean a dance?
Not a school dance. It was like in Spokane, this community, like this is it's a dancing get together. But you can learn how to dance. You can show off your dancing moves. You meet new people, whatever.
A teenage version of the club.
Sure, exactly. I get there. She's like an hour late. She's not having any fun, even though this was her idea. I'm not having any fun because she's not having any fun. And I'm just, this boiling rage is starting to get in me. And I'm just pissed. And I went home after this whole night was a wash. And I had some leftover pizza, and I had rented Raging Bull from the video store because I was starting to butt into my film snobbery. I was starting to butt into my film geekiness, and I knew that was in the pantheon of great movies. And so I watched it that night. And I think me being that angry about it, about everything, and just having that in me, helped me really connect with this story. And the story of Jake LaMotta, and everything about it. And that's one of the first movies I really latched on to as like, this is a great work.
Sure.
And it was through these blinders of just rage I was feeling. And I don't want to say it soothed it, but it helped me understand it on, I think, a different level than you would initially. So, just an interesting little story that...
So that was then.
The first time movie.
Indeed it was.
And I've seen it several times in between then and now.
And this time you feel...
I feel the same about it in terms of, I think it's a great, great movie. It's fantastic. What I got from it this time was how shitty it is to be a boxer. How shitty that life must be. And I kind of saw it more through of a character who is very insecure and very flawed into a sport that is very unrewarding and very difficult for anybody to even make it in. And I kind of saw it as this different sort of character portrait about who he is. So I do feel I got a different understanding of it. Now I'm curious, what did you think about it?
Speaking of rage.
Oh boy.
This movie sucks.
I hate you. I hate you so much.
This is a bad movie.
No,
this
not.
Might be the worst movie we've done on the podcast.
No, it's not. That's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
It's tough. Listen, This is a one-note movie.
No, it's not.
Listen, you're gonna have to let me get through this little screen I got here.
All right.
There's no one in this movie to cheer for. The only people to cheer for are the people who are the most victimized by the main character, being his wife and brother.
Sure.
But those are not good people. They're just not as bad as he is. There's no charm in this movie at all, other than Joe Pesci talking shit sometimes. But that is it, right? And then everyone overreacts to everything. It's toxic people being boring. And listen, there's some things I like. I'm not saying there's nothing to like about this movie. On a technical level, there's some good acting in this movie, and on a cinematography, editing level, it's almost flawless. But story-wise, I fucking hate these people, and I don't want to know what's happening to them. And how many nonsense scenes of jealousy do we need? Kev, the question I will answer myself: 111 minutes of a 121-minute fucking runtime. God damn it! I cannot watch this dude be jealous for hours. Hours, Kev! Almost 2 of them!
Wow.
Oh my god. I fucking hated this movie.
You disappoint me.
This movie, also I should say, I had to, this movie is so long I had to watch it over the course of 2 days. I should have mentioned that at the top. I don't know if that helped or harmed it. I want to say it helped, because I got to break it up with life.
Sure.
But, man, I could not relate to this guy at all. He's a terrible person. Everything is everyone else's fault. It's gross.
Sure. That's certainly what he was as a person.
Sure, listen.
People, and apparently at a screening, he turned to his ex-wife and said, "Was I that bad?" And
she said,
"You were worse."
You were worse.
So imagine
and
that.
And you know what? I believe that, because he seemed terrible. There's a lot of weird shit in this movie, but I want to, this podcast is not always about being negative, so I want to talk about things that are done really well, and I do think
let's get the positives out of the way first.
I do think
because we're gonna fight today.
The acting is executed very well. You know what I mean?
De Niro's performance is impeccable.
I would not disagree with that, and I'd say that Joe Pesci does a really good job, and the wife character, which is horribly underwritten, she's doing a good job.
Yes,
too.
Moriarty.
But she has very little to work with. You know what I mean? And I think the cinematography is second to none in this, right? There's no other way to put it. Like the use of, it's a black and white movie and it's gorgeous, gorgeous.
I mean, the opening credits are just a work of art.
Yeah.
You know?
Where he's in slow mo, he's shadowboxing, and it's just very well done. And
the fight scenes.
We'll get that one second, because I want to talk about. Sorry. So because there's slow mo. Sometimes they'll slow down a shot. You know what I mean, and you'll have dialogue over that slow shot. You know what I mean, like maybe someone like frowning or smiling or drinking, and then there's the use of the home like 16mm or 8mm, not 16, 8mm footage, like when they're at the pool, and that was very evocative. And they have sometimes they have just still photos. That was really good. So I felt like there's a lot in terms of execution that's very talented, because it's not,
I think as we're gonna learn throughout this season, I think Thelma Schoonmaker, if I'm not mistaken, has edited every single one of his movies.
She is not, because there's a little tiff that they had with, there used to be an East Coast and a West Coast editing.
Oh, okay.
So when he made some movies on the West Coast, she could edit them.
Okay.
But majorly, yes.
But I think I can make the argument that her style is very much ingrained in his style, and you can't really separate the two of how they make movies together. I think they're very much married in that idea of how to tell the story through editing, through lighting. He's used a few different cinematographers, but it's always sort of his vision. But yeah, the editing is really what separates, I think, a lot of Scorsese movies from other movies in general.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the prime examples of just how well put together it is. How masterfully put together it is.
So now I want to be mean to this movie, and then we'll get back to the boxing.
Sure.
So,
be mean.
Everything so good. Editing flawless. I agree with what you just said. But the problem is, I think that this doesn't add up to anything. There's no point. There's 10 minutes of amazing boxing footage, which we'll get to in a minute, and 111 minutes of very beautiful footage of people being garbage. Garbage people. And I feel like this movie's a love letter to just never learning anything.
That is completely false.
Who?
Get out of here.
What does
the
he...
scene where he breaks down in jail, screaming, breaking his hands, is a love letter to everything he's done? Give me a fucking break.
Listen, homie. I would be inclined to agree with you based off of everything we saw and then that scene. But what is that scene followed up with? Him getting out of prison, seeing his brother on the street, saying it was both of us. We'll just call it quits or whatever. When it was not both of us, it was totally him. And then in the end, he's like, I could have been a contender if it wasn't for my brother. He didn't learn a goddamn thing. He felt bad because he was in jail.
It's fine that he doesn't learn a thing. It's a character study. He doesn't have to learn anything. People don't always have to learn shit.
I like the idea of that, Kev. I do like the idea of that.
And do you think Joe Pesci is just like, yeah, okay, yeah, it was you, sorry.
No, you're right with that. He doesn't forgive him, and I'm like, thank God that this movie he doesn't forgive him, because
why would they forgive him?
No,
obviously not. He is a monster. This movie is not sympathizing with Jake LaMotta.
It's not. And
it's even more impressive. Jake LaMotta was like a producer on it, and allowed this story to be, and throughout the years has given interviews about it, and has revealed like, yeah, I was a monster.
I think we can, if we were to believe this movie, I do believe that he probably needed the money more than he needed his reputation to be saved.
Telling one-liners in shitty bars, yeah, he probably needed the money.
Yeah, I will say it doesn't paint him in a good. I'm not saying it paints him in a good light. I'm just saying he's just so fucking awful, and it's so fucking awful to watch him be awful. He's so fucking awful.
He's a bad person.
I hate him. Also, I do think the movie...
Here's the thing. When I say I connected to this movie through Rage, I did not say that this is a guy I want to emulate.
Sure.
It made me realize, like,
what
happens if you have no outlet for that rage, and two, if you let it dominate your life, you're going to become this guy.
Sure, and I do think in the end of the movie, it does paint him as washed up and pathetic.
Yeah,
and when I say love letter, what I mean is it's a beautifully crafted, what's it called? Beautifully crafted catalog of someone acting terribly. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
You know what I mean? But I think the movie fucks up with the "Did you fuck my wife?" scene. Right? Now, I don't know the fucking truth of the matter, if he actually fucked his wife or not. And the way that she, when he confronts his wife about it, the way she talks about it, it seems like she's just telling him, like, whatever you want to be true is true. You know what I mean? Fuck you.
And that's a seminal moment in this movie, because they've been telling him the truth and he still doesn't believe them. He is so insecure in his own just masculinity, this guy who is a ripped boxer, who is like practically undefeated until he starts getting pudgy. And he's so locked into this worldview that she has no other choice but to say, like, yeah, I fucked them all, I sucked their dick, what do you want me to do?
Right.
That is a very strong moment.
So I was watching this movie with Emily, and when you
let me guess, she didn't like it either.
If you think I didn't like this movie, fucking dude. I didn't like this fucking movie, dude. But she did think it was well shot, though. I mean, there's no deny. Only a fool would deny this movie's not well shot. It's just not true.
From every technical level, music, cinematography,
yes, it's just
set design, editing, it's flawless.
Right. Unless you just hate beautiful aesthetic. I don't know what you. But because we're watching that scene and she's like, "Oh, he did it," right? And I think the movie is implying that he did do it because he gets all cagey and like he's not saying, "I'm not gonna fucking answer that question. How dare you accuse me of this?" Like you see everyone as the enemy and I'm the only one who's actually in your corner and now you're accusing me. Fuck you. I'm not gonna answer that question. He's like, I'm not gonna. He's all boyish, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, and I don't know what the reality of is, but the reality of the text is, if he did fuck his wife and he is being boyish about it because he feels guilty that he did it, it justifies all of homeboy's shitty jealousy because he's right. His own brother fucked his own wife, right? No one is actually on his side.
But I think to imply that he did, I never got that from that scene. Again,
then why is he being so boyish about it? Why is he being like, I don't know?
He always acts that way. This is a very low-key Pesci performance.
It is a low-key Pesci performance. Yeah. I am a fan of Joe Pesci.
We're going to see a couple other ones in this where Pesci goes full Pesci. But,
Pesci goes full Pesci.
But this is a very low-key I think, subtly humorous performance, but he's not going to have the big Pesci freak out, you know, and he's not the raging bull that his brother is. He is kind of just this meek guy who is only just trying to do the best thing, and I think that's his low-key way of just being insulted by what his brother says. You know, the fact that, you know, he is the only guy who's in his corner. He is the only guy that really puts up with his shit.
I would say that
if you piss off the mob, you suck. You know, it's like if the mob goes, wow, that guy sucks. It's like you've done something wrong.
I just think that in that moment, you could have used a Pesci freak out. You could have used a Pesci being like you think that I would do that to you after everything that I've supported you, all of the stupid decisions you've made. Like in this movie, they don't ever actually say it, but basically it's like the mob runs boxing. You know what I mean? And he doesn't want to be involved with the mob, and then it kind of, you know, it costs him contender spots because they won't give him the title shot.
Yep.
And I just think that I just feel like that scene to me I just was like, fuck this movie, that scene.
Nah, see, that to me is the scene that really sells it, and the scene where he confronts his wife. That's where we know just how insecure and pathetic he actually is. But yeah, and I agree. If it does turn out that yes, they did fuck, then this movie is justifying all of that. But I really don't think it is.
I don't know, man. He got how cagey he got about that. I just feel like undercut. Let's talk about the boxing.
Yes.
So from the first scene, we get the boxing. We get the slow mo, we get the speed up, the pushes in, the pushes out, the smoke, the close ups. You know, it's not. This is from the get go. This is not real life boxing. This is how boxing would feel to someone who loves boxing, and maybe how it feels to box. But it is not objective boxing, right? There's way too many free punch. It's like pro wrestling. It's like people are just letting themselves get punched in a way that, like, you know, you wouldn't drop your hands and let someone just tee off on you. You know, you would keep your hands up and like let them punch your hands, and punch the gloves, not your fucking chin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like the way the arterial spray is so over the top, and I do. And also like in the first one, that when he loses and they start to riot, people are doing like tope fucking suicidas off the top rope.
Chairs are flying.
Yeah.
I love the shot of the organist playing.
Yeah.
And as everybody's just going ape shit.
Right. Yeah. And trying to, and also it's like, you know, and I love wrestling. Kev, you know this. And people always criticize wrestling, like when bad shit is happening out of control in the ring, they just keep ringing the bell over and over, and people are like, why are they ringing that bell? But in this movie, they ring the bell over and over. Because if you're the timekeeper with the bell, what would you do if there was a riot? You'd be ringing the bell.
Yep, exactly.
Because you got nothing else to do.
Yeah, nothing else to do.
So I think people could criticize this movie for having super unrealistic boxing in it, but I do think that it is so unrealistic that it crosses back over to stylish.
Well, I think we're seeing it, one, from his point of view, and two, it is a very, not romantic view, a stylish view of boxing, a cinematic view of boxing.
Romantic in that it's not realistic.
It's not realistic.
But not romantic in that it's like, oh, how lovely this is. It's like, you know, it is portraying boxing as brutally violent.
Nasty sport.
And perhaps in a way that actual boxing doesn't come across. Like, actual football doesn't come across as violent, even though it's insanely violent. And actual boxing and MMA, I would argue, because it's organized and there's rounds and there's rules and there's a referee and there's uniforms and things, it doesn't come across as like this insanely violent street fight.
Sure.
And the punches are bobo fake. Like, they are pulling those punches. They are nowhere near to connecting. They don't look like real punches. They're not following through, you know. But because you can't have an actor just punch another actor as hard as they can over and over and over again, it's okay. And by steering into the more romantic, unrealistic, stylish view of this, I think Scorsese makes the right decision, right? Where Sugar Ray Robinson punches him and there's a fucking puff of smoke, you know, and then blood flies and the close-up of De Niro's mouthpiece flying around. That works really well.
Flash bulbs. And,
yeah.
Now, I feel like sometimes these fights aren't really even told. I think it's purposeful, not told in continuity. I think they're supposed to be kind of chaotic, and I think.
What do you mean by that?
You know, it's like, did he follow up with a one punch with like a bunch of chest shots and then another punch? It's just meant to be this flurry and orgy of punches. And I think it's especially true in this first fight. I broke down the 3 major fights into different like themes of what they're trying to go for. And I think in the first fight, LaMotta loses on a very controversial decision. So that fight is told very chaotically. There's lots of cuts. There's lots of, again, smoke, flash bulbs, all kinds of things.
To make it seem like you don't know who really won.
Exactly.
Because he says, I knocked him down. What more can I do?
You know, and they show him like lift his arm up, and the Luminaire can just barely even get his arm up. And it's, again, boxing's a completely unfair sport. Because, like, to everybody else in that arena, LaMotta won that fight. But, you know, there's an arbitrary point system, and he didn't win that fight.
And I don't know if at this time they're doing like the 10-point must system. So like, you know, if you win a fight, if you win a round, you get 10 points, and if you lose a round, you get 9 or fewer. But really, if you got like most people get 9. If you got really beaten badly, you get an 8. And if you get like a 7 or a 6, you probably are gonna they probably stop the match by that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. So basically, even if all the rounds are really close, but you lose, you know, 3 or 5, that now you're down. So it's 9 plus 9 plus 9. You know, versus 30. You know what I'm saying? Like, It's a weird point system where it's like, if you lose 3 rounds, you have to basically dominate 3 rounds. But then if you lose it if you really get rocked, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not like you're just judging a fight as a fight. It is by rounds. It's point system by round.
And it's always going to be subject to the objectivity of the judges.
Right.
Whatever they call a point.
Right.
So there's that fight. It's pure chaos. The second fight is very sweeping. And because he's at the top of his game and he's just rocking this guy, and it's, you know, big sweeping camera shots. The ring set itself is larger.
Yes, that was like a wrestling or boxing ring is either 16 by 16 or 24 by 24, somewhere in the middle of that. That was like 40 by 45.
Yes, exactly. But that's the feeling he's in. It's like he can do no wrong in that fight. He rocks this guy. This is his chance to get a title, or at least start to really be considered as a serious contender. The third fight, he's in just a pit of hell. There's steam. It's sweaty. They literally put flames. Under the camera to get that heat.
Yeah.
That mirage heat look, and
that's when he gets lit up, right?
That's when he gets really lit up. And it's the way they tell the story in these fights through the technical aspects is so great, and I think is a microcosm for the whole movie of how well put together it is. You know, he doesn't, and that's something I love about Scorsese, is he never sticks to one technique. He's always trying different stuff throughout his whole career, throughout the same movie. He's trying everything to get the feeling that he wants. And I think in Raging Bull, he really succeeds. And it's in the fight sequences.
I would agree that the fight sequences are the best part of the movie. Unfortunately, the fight sequences in their totality add up to 10 minutes of running time.
But you remember them.
But you
remember him.
And it's true. And it should. And listen, if you're gonna make a boxing movie, you should probably, or really any movie with action. I think this is an interesting thing to study because by doing all the things you're saying, right? You're in hell, so there's that flamey aspect of it. There's the smoke. It's selling you on the truth of the emotion of the fight, right? That this is him losing it. He'll never come. It's on the end of that fight. He's like, "You never knock me down. You never knock me down," but he never recovers from the fight.
Yep.
He never gets his career back online. Kev, you said you wanted to talk about how boxing is hard.
There's a lot of scenes, you know, early in the movie he talks about, I'll never get to fight Joe Louis. And Joe Pesci's like, he's a heavyweight, you're a middleweight, so what? And it's like, but to a boxer, Joe Louis is the best of that time. But because of the arbitrary rules of boxing, he's never going to get that chance.
Well,
the Jaguars might get a shot at the Patriots.
Right.
They'll lose, but there's always that chance they could win. But he's never going to get to fight the guy that everybody says is the best and to prove that he's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a weird thing in combat sports where you're trying to match people's size to make it a quote-unquote fair fight, and we measure size in weight, which is an arbitrary thing and then what people end up doing is just cutting weight. So it's like, but it's kind of bobo, right? Because if you and me are both going to go for the middleweight belt, which is 185, so you and me both cut down from our respective weights to 185. If we both do it for the advantage, neither of us really gets the advantage. So all we've done is just starve ourselves.
Exactly.
And then try to gain the weight back in that day. So we're just basically having an eating disorder for no reason.
Yep.
Every time we get an opportunity to fight. So it's a weird system of trying to match sizes by attributing that to weight, but then letting people lose a bunch of weight, and then basically try to dehydrate themselves and then rehydrate themselves, which is actually extremely dangerous to your brain chemistry, especially in the context of head injury.
Did your high school have wrestling by any chance?
It did.
And you see the wrestlers like spitting into Gatorade cups and shit like that when they had to try to make weight?
Why were they spitting Gatorade cups?
Apparently that's a way to, like, when you're getting up to weight, you just like spit to lose water.
Ew, are you? Ugh.
Dude, it was gross, but they were all doing it.
I think there was a sauna in my high school where they would just sweat it out.
Well, that's another scene in this movie. He's in that sauna just like working, and he's like, give me a little water just for my tongue. And the guy's like, no. It's like, you have to lose the weight, You can't, like, his whole career rides on like a few pounds, and it just, what I really got from this is just, how shitty a life it is just to be a boxer. Like, you have to think about every single thing you eat. And then it kind of leads to his downfall, because then he talks about, all I was ever worried about is eating. No, I don't have to worry about it anymore. And he's this fat bastard. He's this fat joke-telling bastard who has no money.
I will say, I do like how these New Yorkers talk, like, bring it over here, like, like, forget about it. Like that whole,
just
like...
having drinks.
Like that, just that way of talking I enjoy.
One of my favorite lines is, he says, she said he's a pretty kid. And Joe Pesci goes, make him ugly.
Exactly. That's exactly. I love that.
It was a bird, but it's dead now. So.
Does anything big not work for you in this movie, Kev?
For me, no. I think this is a pretty flawlessly put together movie. I know you have issues, and we're gonna get into them.
Strongly disagree.
But I think storytelling wise, technical aspect, I think everything just really flows great.
I want to put over another element of the movie that works well, which is a lot of the scenes are, they have these scenes that are like a microcosm for the time in their life, right? So they're arguing about how much he's eating and how he's worried about getting the title shot, and then they yell at their wives. Yeah. But you do get a good sense of the world, right? When you go to the swimming pool, it feels like a real public pool, right? There's a bunch of random people. They're all just doing their own thing. Like, for some reason, De Niro's hanging out, like, near the showers, and you see people just, like, like, washing off the chlorine. It's like, don't be a gross guy.
Well, they're hiding from the rain.
Yeah. But it's just like, go over there.
There's better place than just hide in the shower.
Yeah, it's like the water's falling from the sky. So where do you want to fall from? Another place where the water falls from the sky. Come, get out of here. And then when they're at the church social, they or maybe they're in the club. I can't remember. They pass. He's chasing her out, and they pass like has been a fight that's been broken up. And you pass like a bunch of dudes and they're arguing, and a bunch of guy and he's bleeding, and then he goes outside, and then they all then they have a scene, and then they all get kicked out. So it's really in tune with another story that's going on in that scene, and that is well done.
Yes.
And I will give credit where credit is due.
Scorsese is a great world builder.
Indeed.
Gets you in, you're very much in the pocket of whatever cinematic world he's creating.
It's just unfortunate that it is a drug-fueled, super hyper-masculine, gross world.
Drug-fueled? Who's doing drugs?
They're all drinking. They're all fucking. At one point, he starts doing pills.
Drinking, all right, that's okay. I mean, we get way more into the drugs than others.
Sure, well, sure, but we're talking about this one. We're talking about here we are right now.
All right.
And you have any nitpicks? Just small things. Even my nitpicks are huge in this.
And they're more nitpick. Honestly, no, I have none.
This is a technical thing on the DVD. Like, we complain sometimes when the audio is like up and down.
Oh, sure.
But this was like, I when they were whispering, I had to max out my TV to all the way up volume wise, and then you cut to a fucking prize fight, and all of a sudden
blasting out.
Yeah. That is.
I remember that. Is it the MGM DVD?
Yeah, MGM. Yeah.
That was the one I used to have, and I remember that very much being an issue on that. The Blu-ray that I have is very well mixed, so. Works out better.
Hey, good.
But yeah, I remember those whispers are quiet.
And what's annoying is when you don't like a movie and you're having to constantly adjust for it, it's not a good feeling, Kev. It doesn't help you like the movie anymore. And it screws your objectivity because you're like, this fucking thing's making me work. Also, the scenes where he's seducing a 15-year-old girl, and I looked it up, he was supposed to be 22 at the time, which is gross, but it does predate our concept of teenagers being a thing, so I'm going to let that slide for now. But the weird open mouth kisses and the kisses on his hairy stomach are so not erotic. It is like, I wanted to fast forward those scenes. I did not do it, but that was, I don't know if they were trying to make that sexy, but that was not sexy. And I'm now worried that Scorsese can't pull off sexy times.
But what's interesting about that scene is it ends up being very not sexy because he has to pour the water on his balls.
Yeah.
So.
Which, by the way, he's pouring water on his balls, but then his underwear is not wet. Also.
Well, it's black and white. It's hard to see.
I can see that, homie. I can see that. And also, like, why do they have a pitcher of fucking water in the bathroom?
Well, but that's, from what I understand, that's like an adrenaline thing or a testosterone thing, and he's trying to either raise it or lower it
by not
he needs it by. So you get a lot of testosterone as you're getting aroused, but then you kill it with the water, and that's a way to like. It's how they're always kind of fucking with their levels, whatever they need to do in a fight. You know.
I'm not going to take issue.
Every athlete has kind of their little ritual, and that's probably one of his rituals.
I'm not taking issues with that because athletes do have the rituals, and you're totally right. Objectively, when you engage in sexual whatever, it raises all of your hormones or whatever in a desirable fight level, kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like if you're a fighter, you want to be jizzing constantly before a fight. You know what I mean? But I get that, maybe they didn't know that at the time. I'm not nitpicking that one. Also, so on to cool stuff. If you have any more nitpicks?
No.
On to cool stuff. Just the New York City way of talking. Your mother's an animal. Just like that as an insult. He's like, what are you talking about here? You talking about your steak? You're cracking up.
It's like a piece of charcoal. Bring it over here.
Yeah. It's just like, I wish more likable people were saying more likable things in that context instead of yelling at their wives and demanding that they be seen, not heard.
Threatening to kill their neighbor's dog.
Indeed. You know what I mean? But.
Which apparently in that scene, they were actually shooting in an apartment.
And he started saying that?
Yeah, that was some neighbor, and then they just threw that insert shot in there to make it look, not quite as incidental. But yeah, he just in character just yelled at that guy. So it was just a great moment.
Do you think this movie would have worked in color? There is a color scene.
There are. It's the home movies.
The home movies.
And then the title is Red, Raging Bull.
I don't remember that, but I believe you.
Yeah, in the opening credits, when it says Raging Bull, it's blood red. I don't think it would. I really don't. Yeah,
I don't think so either. I think it sets a tone. I think it has an aesthetic. I think that black and white looks cool. You know what I mean? It's just
especially when it's conceived start to finish to be black and white.
Right.
So
and especially the shots at the fucking of the fights where again, because everything is so stylish, you have what is essentially a crowd and then just blackness.
Yep.
Right? That's not what arenas look like. There's walls and fucking struts and lights and popcorn vendors and things like that. But it's like, no, it's just the crowd and then that's it. You know what I mean? And I think that really works in black and white. Could someone conceivably engineer that into color? Perhaps, but it wouldn't be this movie.
Exactly.
And I think
there's the great one take shot of him in the locker room coming out.
That was phenomenal. Was phenomenal.
I mean, just that's the true sense of like this is the high point of being a boxer. Is that moment of just pure triumph coming out of that hole, and everybody's there to see you.
Well, that's the thing is that it's interesting because Tito Ortiz, noted other terrible person, real life terrible person.
It's like boxers are terrible people or something.
Yeah, it lends itself to it apparently. But he said fighting is the loneliest you'll ever feel, and he's like he said as you come to the ring it's just you. So that's the loneliest you've ever been. When you're training, everyone's trying to help you, everyone's with you, but once you go to the ring, it's an illusion, right? Now they're gonna leave you, and you're gonna get in the ring, and you're gonna be there alone. And that's the thing about that is the exciting thing about sports, especially with boxing and combat sports in general, is that like if you lose, there's no winner. It's like if you lose. I mean, when it's more objective, if you lose, you're fucked, right? Because that's a loss, and you have to start over again. You know what I mean? And with a sports under a season, a loss is bad, but you can, something like baseball, one loss is
one loss out of 168 opportunities not going to kill you.
Yeah, ostensibly meaningless. In football, a loss can come back to haunt you.
It is, but there are 16 games.
Sure. In fighting, a loss can really fucking derail your career if it's bad. You know what I mean?
Ronda Rousey.
She lost 2 times very convincingly, and it's like, not only might she not be interested in fighting, people might not be interested in fighting, which is very, very strange.
Mm-hmm. She was on top of the world until she was taken down, and then that narrative changed like that.
Man, it's crazy. But it's interesting because I do think people do like a comeback story too.
Of course,
I think people
fighting really lends itself because it's such a personal sport.
Right. So I think if there's any time to give her an easy fight, I think if you give her a couple of months, or maybe a year, and then if she was like, I'm coming back, and you gave her someone, and she lost badly twice, so you can say, we're going to start her at the bottom of the ranking, so you give her like the lowest ranked person, that would be an interesting story, watching her climb up through the ranks.
Yep.
Does she want to do it? I don't know. Getting kicked in the face doesn't seem very fun.
No, it doesn't.
But do you care about LaMotta's struggles, or is he just too much of a monster?
From a traditional character idea of what a movie is, it's not so much do I care, do I like him, do I care what he goes through. I do care what he goes through, but just because it's such an interesting mix of unforgiving sport and insecure man. And I think that's really the story they're trying to tell. And through that, I think they're very successful. Now, as I've learned from you, this might not click with everybody. He is a monster of a man. He's a terrible person. But he is presented in a very unforgiving way. And that's what I love so much about this story. Is it lets him... De Niro just gained 60 pounds for this one role. It's like, that's insane. He just went to France and ate cheesecake, and that was it. And it lets him have these really sad, lonely moments. And that's a great line you said about fighting's the loneliest you'll ever be. That really fits this movie to a T. Because it's not just in the ring. If you're Jake LaMotta, it's
everywhere.
You're in a Miami-Dade County jail, punching the wall and screaming to yourself,
and punching a cop.
Because you let a 15-year-old drink at your shitty, kitschy bar, You're telling, bad one-liners to half-carrying drunks in Midtown,
Opening for a stripper.
Exactly. You're the undercard for, an old stripper. How sad is that? So yeah.
So to answer my own question of, do I care? Nah, fuck him.
Sure. It's fine.
And also, this fucking movie ends with a Bible quote. A Bible quote, Kev! Get your Bible out of here.
Scorsese's Catholic. He's gonna put it in there.
You don't say. And I don't remember. I mean, I was probably just... I don't remember the Bible quote. We don't really have to get into it, but...
Well, it was more... The Bible quote is more a tribute to his film school teacher, Manguian, or whatever his name is. I think that's more a tribute to... He's putting that at the end of that as a tribute to him, as opposed to a sum up of the movie, so to say.
Fair enough. Kev, do you like this movie? Does it work?
I think it's one of the 10 greatest movies ever made. I think it's up there. It is impeccably made, impeccably acted. De Niro is incredible. Deserved every accolade he ever got for it. I think it's a masterpiece. I truly do.
I'm going to strongly disagree.
That's fine.
And listen.
But look at the great conversation we have on a movie that you claim is the worst thing we've ever done on this podcast.
I need to listen back to this podcast and see how great it was or wasn't. No, I don't know.
Listen, but we had a fruitful conversation.
Indeed. And I will not throw the whole movie. I will not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is things to learn from this movie. I would argue you could just go to those scenes and learn it, then watch those scenes without the rest of the chaff. But that's just me. And I will also say this. Listen, Marty famously went a lot of years without appreciation. I get that now.
Damn.
Because I can see how this movie, you can watch the movie and be like,
nice.
I can see how you can watch the movie and be like, this is style over substance. Because character and story, man, I don't think this movie got it.
It's there. Oh, it's there. It's a character study of a very flawed man. And they do not try to justify his actions.
I will agree.
I think you think they were doing it and you were wrong.
I will agree that he's a flop man. Because he is. In Scorsese's filmography, where does this rank from essential to forgettable? You say essential.
Absolutely. I think this is one of his defining movies.
I'd say this movie's oppressive. Oppressing me. And so I'm 0-1 right now to do a boxing analogy.
All right, there you go.
And I don't know. I mean, I do think that
and as I said at the head of this episode, maybe this isn't the best Scorsese movie to start on for somebody. If you're just trying to get him into the Scorsese
but it's tough to say that given the hype around the movie and the hype around the man, right?
True.
It's like,
absolutely.
If you ask a diehard Scorsese fan, they'll be like, there are no bad Scorsese movies. Then you'd be like, Hugo, and they'll be like, all right, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what does count?
A diehard Scorsese movie have multiple ones where I'm like, you're not on your best behavior here, Marty.
So I don't know. I don't want to. I'd say the sports storytelling scenes are very, very good and rival other movies. I don't know how you can say this is the best sports movie of all time.
It's not even really about the sport; it's about the man.
Right, but that's what AFI said.
I know and I've always found that comparison bizarre. Like I would never compare this to like Bull Durham, which is about baseball and a guy in baseball, or Field of Dreams, which is very much about the love of baseball and what baseball means.
Right. You know? Or Rocky, which is about
boxing
and being a contender and what that means and all that kind of shit.
This one I don't get the sense that it's a sports movie in that very traditional sense of like Rudy or Brian's song or something like that. You know, it's a character study that just happens to be a boxer.
I mean, you know, a divisive movie and an interesting way to start this season.
Don't call it the worst movie we've ever done for this podcast, though.
It was pretty fucking boring, Kev.
You cannot say it's technically flawless and say it's the worst movie ever.
I'm not saying it's technically flawless. I'm saying it's technically really well made.
Okay.
But it was boring in a way that I'd have to go back and like look at all the movies that we do to see if it was the most boring. You know what I mean? And then
can't be as impressively boring as Batman vs Superman.
Well, the problem with that comparison is that I was highly anticipating Batman vs Superman, so I was very eager to absorb the information that ended up being garbage information. So there's a difference there, right? There's a difference there.
Sure.
Right. And it's called hype. And they stole my fucking $17. Those bastards.
Is Zack Snyder Don King? He's Don King.
He feels like Don King. We're running a little bit long, but I just want to say it's interesting because this movie is stylishly executed. And I do feel like in the modern day we deride people for being stylish. Because we notice stylishness, we assume it's distracting even if it isn't. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a level of anti-intellectualism that I just absolutely fucking hate. I will never, if someone gives me a slow motion shot, my reaction will never be to immediately discredit that. I feel like we have friends who will be like, oh, Zack Snyder, he just does everything in slow motion. Yeah. It's like, well, what's happening here is happening very fast. So on an objective, like, what is happening level, it might be best to slow it down just so I can fucking tell what's going on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, we all can't be Jason Bourne where it's a close-up cut to close-up cut to close-up cut. Yeah. And it's like, I think he elbowed a guy in the face, although that might have been, like, the back of someone's jacket.
Exactly.
So I don't really understand. But... So, I'll never write a movie off for being stylish intrinsically. It has to fail at being stylish. Wanted.
Sure. There you go.
So, I guess what I'm trying to say is Wanted was not a good movie, and I didn't like Raging Bull. That's it for us. This episode written by Kev. Music by Jeff Russell. I'm Mr. Jibber Jabber. That's Kev. We'll see you next week for the next course of the buffet. Treat people with love and respect, folks. Don't be
Jake LaMotta.
And don't be Robert De Niro either. I don't know.
Have a good one.
Hey everybody, Mr. Jibber Jabber here. An addendum to this episode of Raging Bull. I did imply, and for reasons I feel are justified, that this was the worst movie that we've done on the podcast. I have looked back at the list. You just give it a quick pass over, and I do have to say that Con Air is definitely worse than this movie, and Zardoz may be the worst movie ever made.
It is awful.
So, in terms of the worst movies ever made, the number one is Avatar: Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan, tied with Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull 4, because those had so much talent behind them.
Sure.
But in terms of just oppressively, aggressively terrible, Zardoz does take the cake in terms of the podcast. So, an addendum to the episode, just going to add it here at the end. Zardoz, that's the gold standard of awful. I don't know if we'll ever find anything that inept ever again, but that movie was oppressive in every conceivable way. Orally, visually, story-wise, special effects,
or lack thereof.
Lack thereof. So, I'm nothing if not willing to admit when I'm wrong. Zardoz, worst movie we've done. Have a good night.
Proud of you.